Strive and Thrive is a collection of discussions featuring guests from various fields, focused on guiding entrepreneurs in creating businesses that excel in every aspect: people, planet, and profit. Throughout the series, you can join us, Romesh and Mike, as we explore relevant topics with our guests which can help businesses thrive.
Romesh and I met while I was supporting a client transforming their business. And I needed finance director support and reached out to him and his team. Since then, we've become good friends who share a passion for business and entrepreneurship. If you like today's discussion, then you want to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels.
Hello, and welcome to Strive and Thrive with Gillian Jones-Williams. Gillian is an inspirational business leader, author, and motivational speaker who exemplifies how neurodiversity can be a driver of innovation, resilience, and success. Gillian founded Emerge Development Consultancy, a thriving learning and development firm, nearly 30 years ago. In 2024, she was honoured with the award for Businesswoman of the Decade in the Best Businesswomen Awards. I've known Gillian for a while. We had the pleasure of meeting at the Best Businesswomen Awards themselves, and I've been truly inspired by her story. So welcome to Strive and Thrive, Gillian. It's nice to see you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Absolutely. No, it's a pleasure. Please, could you maybe kick things off by giving us a kind of 1 minute summary of your journey to date?
Yes, thank you. 1 minute. Well, as you said, 30 years ago, by pure accident, I started Emerge, and we started as an organisational development and training organisation. I was one of the original kind of coaching people as well, not much coaching in those days, so that became a passion. And since then, we have built the business globally. We do a lot of work with organisations on transformation leadership, but also lots on diversity, equity and inclusion, lots of executive coaching, anti-harassment, and well, all sorts of weird things that people ask me to do, although that's not the right thing, is it's just things you wouldn't expect, like audit training and things like that. So and it's been a wonderful roller coaster of a ride for all those years, as I'm sure it has been for many business owners, particularly the last 6 years. Yeah.
So you use the word roller coaster, Gillian. Why do you describe your journey as a roller coaster?
I was trying to count the other day. Our business has survived probably 3 recessions, Brexit, a pandemic, and many other things which perhaps other businesses have really struggled with, and we have struggled with them. But when you kind of look back on that and you think, 30 years creeps up on you, you don't really realise it's happened until suddenly, someone says that, or you realise how old you are. But yeah, a lot has happened over those years, which we've had to navigate, change, and still try and stay in business, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. Romesh and I, and on this, we use the roller coaster word a lot. I think it's the one that's most described by founders that we talk to. So when you set up the business, what did you always want to be a founder? Was it a sort of an epiphany and you started your business, or was there a transitional moment?
You may regret you asked this. It was actually, I was working for a recruitment consultancy, and there was a case of sexual harassment within the organisation, and I was number 2 to the managing director. At the time, I'd won a contract for training, which the business didn't really do, but I don't know whether you two are like this, but if somebody says, can you do this? I always say yes first before thinking, can I? So we'd agreed to do some training for a big organisation, quite a big contract. we had the case of sexual harassment. Cut a long story short, I dealt with it. The person actually said they were going to resign, but when the managing director returned from holiday, he decided to woo them back with more money. I kind of said, I can't work for an organisation that condones sexual harassment. And he said, well, you have to make your choice. And I did. And I was bin-linered, literally marched to my desk and out the door. And then the next day, the client phoned and said, well, what's happening with our training? And I said, well, I don't work there anymore. And they said, well, I guess you're unemployed. I said, well, I hadn't really thought much about it. Now you mention it, I'm very unemployed today. So they said, well, we'll contract with you directly. And I said, okay, no idea how to run a business, no name for a business, didn't know how to invoice. The recruitment company sent me a lawsuit for breach of contract. So it was a really excellent start, but that was how it all began. No plans, no decisions to do that. It just happened like that.
Wow, fascinating. I think everyone we talk to has an interesting snippet of how they start their businesses, and I think that's a fascinating story. And it's a shame that it was triggered from not a nice event, but a moral event for you. But in doing so, it's enabled you to set your business up. And so it was an accident. But when did you really realise you were a founder and an entrepreneur yourself?
That's such a great question, Mike, because I honestly think it was at least 5 or 10 years before I kind of thought, I'm not pretending, I am actually quite good at this. I mean, really classic imposter syndrome going on, because you constantly think, well, I'm going to get caught out here. People are going to realise I don't really know what I'm talking about. And, you know, also, I was a young woman who was mainly training in very male-dominated environments. And because I'd had a rather turbulent start to my life, I didn't have any education. So that was kind of, one of the things where the first thing that men would often ask me when I walked in the room is, what's your degree in? And so it could be a bit unsettling. So I think I always felt I was a bit on the back foot until I really established myself and realized, actually, I think I'm pretty good at what I'm doing here. So if anyone out there is thinking, I feel that way, you're not alone. I don't know, did you two feel that way? Do men have imposter syndrome in the same way as women do?
I know I certainly still do sometimes, I think, when I'm having those conversations, thinking, I'm really not sure what we're going to do next. What am I doing here? Everyone is always so calm and relaxed, and you're having that panic moment when you're on your roller coaster of being a founder.
But yeah, Mike, you've also got to remember that 30 years ago, there was no ChatGPT, Copilot, or even Google. So when people said, could you write a course on assertiveness? I said, yes. I had to go to the library and take out every book. There wasn't even Amazon to next day me a load of books to research it all and to write an outline.
That's amazing.
What about you, Romesh?
Yeah, definitely is the answer. I definitely felt, and sometimes still do feel, imposter syndrome. I think, Gillian, you talked about how we perceive things as men. Actually, as well, I kind of think about it as a finance person, right? That's my background. And finance people tend not to love the limelight. I'm generalizing, of course, right? But I am an extrovert. I like people, but I don't necessarily want to, step out and be center stage. And when you set up a business, you kind of have to, don't you? You have to put yourself out there. And yeah, I definitely found that I was underestimating, actually, and I'm sure you guys have felt the same. Underestimating my own ability, underestimating my own, I suppose, ability to communicate and do the job. And actually, there was a lot of faith that people put into me, and I've kind of built that extra confidence over time, where you keep I suppose overcoming these little thoughts in your head which are saying, hang on, should you be doing this? Are you the right person for this? Yeah, so I think we all share that, from the sounds of it.
And I think it also means that you underestimate your worth financially. And my brother's a very big businessman. I've a younger brother, he's amazing. And one day I remember him saying to me, Gillian, your prices are far too low. You need to be reassuringly expensive. And that really sat with me, because it had never occurred to me that somebody would look at our prices and think they're a bit cheap, they can't be very good. So I think it's something we all have to go through.
Yeah, and that's definite innate confidence, isn't it? To kind of say, this is my value, and I'll stick with it, and that's what I'm worth. And because not everyone will agree with that, and I suppose it's having the confidence and the strength to say, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you wait till you get the bill for this, Romesh, you'll realise.
You'll send that to Mike, I assume.
Yeah.
Well done. Brilliant. So you left home quite early on, didn't you, Gillian?
Yeah.
So that's something that I've learned from your story, having known you for some time. Can you tell us about that, and maybe some of the experiences that informed and helped you on your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Funny enough, my father was an entrepreneur as well. We're all East Enders. We were born in the East End, so he started out in the market. So I think I was always watching him coming up with the next best thing, selling something or making up boxes of toys from our kitchen. But the problem was my mother was chronically bipolar. And if anyone's listening and they know much about bipolar, they'll understand it's a very, very complex illness. She was bipolar grade 1, so there were lots of manic episodes, suicide attempts, and having to be sectioned into hospital for a large proportion of my life. So I did go to college for about 2 weeks and then realised very quickly I needed to get a job. So I left without that education. And later, I discovered that I also was bipolar. I am a very low, there's 3 grades of bipolar. There's cyclothymia, which I am, which is a very low grade, where you live your life in ups and downs, not necessarily medicated. There's grade 2, which is where you do suffer from a lot more anxiety and you have more manic episodes. Unfortunately, my son, well, I say unfortunately, I think it makes him partially, was diagnosed with grade 2 last year. But the thing with bipolar, it makes you very, very creative and often very good with words. So if you think of the famous bipolar people like Stephen Fry, Robbie Williams, I think Robin Williams, people like that, that's what can happen. And I guess in my industry and in what I do, that was really helpful. Also late diagnosed as ADHD, and that was only when my son was going through these diagnoses that we realised that I was as well. And it's made me really fascinated in neurodivergence and supporting people with that, because it's something whereby when you understand it and can work with it, it can be the most amazing thing. There's lots of downsides. So anybody out there who's neurodivergent in whatever way it is will know the downsides to it. But it can be a real superpower when you harness it. And I think that has really been one of the foundations of my business, is my creativity and speed at which to pivot, to change things around, to come up with new ideas. Drives my team absolutely crazy. And I do remember years ago when I did a feedback exercise with them, and it really stuck with me. One of them, who is a brilliant planner, said, I have some feedback for you. He said, could you just think of one idea and stick with it? Now, at the time, I didn't realise quite how difficult that was for me to do, but I took it on board and I kind of tried to curb it now. So, yeah, that's kind of the history of why I didn't go to university. I've studied hugely since then, and certainly things like psychology and neurodivergence and neuroscience. And it was just part of kind of the makeup of my childhood, really.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of resilience in that story, Gillian. And I have to say, I think you're really brave to be so open about, you know, these challenges, you know, what you've experienced and in your family and yourself. And we had an episode previously on the podcast with Claire Butcher, who talks about neurodiversity, excuse me. And it seems to be, you know, a condition which is quite common amongst entrepreneurs and founders. Interesting, I think, because to your point, there are certain advantages, right? There's a real drive. There's a real, you know, kind of let's get these things done. But you know, what are the downsides of having these kind of conditions, and how are you impacted as a founder, you know, when you're experiencing this?
I think the main impact is exhaustion and frustration. And I do recognise everybody is different. And it's interesting because you say, actually, it's very brave to say it, and you're right. 5 years ago, I would never, ever have told a client, an associate, or even some of my acquaintances that I had bipolar, because, you know, you say it and generally the response you get is a bit of a deathly silence. And I really understand this now. When I was a child and I used to say, oh, my mum's got bipolar, we called it manic depression in those days, people would shuffle uncomfortably and I could see them searching for exits. And I think because of that, it made me terrified to speak to them. And I understand that, because when people think of bipolar, they do think of those people who are shouting at people in the street and having suicide attempts and, you know, deep depression, because that's what they've seen in the press and on television. That's not me. You know, I've never had a manic episode and I've never had a deep depression there. But I can understand people feeling that way. You know, if you stand in a room and say, oh, my mother's got a heart condition, immediately they would be all there. So what's the treatment? What can you do about it? What can you do that? But I had to learn that you just don't talk about it. And so, like a lot of other people who are neurodivergent or have mental health issues, I really masked that for many, many years. And what will happen, because I'm both hyperfocus and inattentive ADHD, I can go into hyperfocus for 6 or 7 hours and produce a document that would take somebody a week to do, particularly now we've got AI as well. I mean, that makes it even worse. And then I come out really proud of this and say to somebody, I've done this marketing plan, how do you feel? And they say, well, actually, it's a bit overwhelming. And I'm like, but I'm really excited about it, you know, let's go. So it has its ups and downs. And not being able to focus always follows that. And the frustration of thinking, why can't I be like I was yesterday? And the frustration probably for other people around me thinking, why can't you be how you were yesterday? Because it's so inconsistent.
Can I ask you a question on, as you've become more public about talking about it, and also perhaps understand it better, because there's still everyone's learning more around what bipolar ADHD is. How have you used that to help you manage your team and your organization? Has it helped you evolve as a founder and a manager of your business?
It really has helped the team, because now they understand. I can say to them, oh, I'm having one of my moments here. And I think they now think, that's okay, she will calm down with it eventually, and she will come out of it and say, this is the idea that we're going to do. And they recognise that me talking out loud in a brainstorming meeting doesn't mean I'm committing to all these things. It's just that, you know, there are squirrels everywhere in my head, and it's 1, 2, 3, and we could do this and we could do that. So I think it's really helped with the understanding. I think for many, many years, it was like, you know, I think they'd call me Hurricane Gillian if I came in the office for a day. They'd be like, brace yourself, you know. But they're wonderful. I mean, it goes to show, my chief member of my team, Dawn, has been with me for nearly 30 years. So she's been with me for nearly the whole time. So it's clearly not that painful. And she's incredibly methodical. And I think I realised I need to surround myself with people who are great at the things that I'm not great at. But I think to be an entrepreneur, if you don't have some element of neurodivergence, it might be quite hard to be as creative and to think about where you're going to go and what you're going to do next.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know from other people. I mean, you're both your own businesses as well. Do you feel that you could do with a bit of that?
Go on, Romesh, you go first.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, having that creative spark is definitely a challenge for me. It's something I quite enjoy actually thinking about. I mean, one of the practical challenges for me is finding the time to actually. I need to kind of stop my day to day to actually get myself into creative mode. Whereas I sense from what you're saying, Gillian, that it just happens and you kind of and you
when you don't want it to as well.
So like everything, there's pros and cons to it, right? So but in many ways I'm quite envious of the fact that you just have these streaks of like really powerful kind of ideas, and that's something kind of great to kind of lean into. So that's something I kind of have to deliberately say, okay,
creative.
That's my challenge. Mike, how about you? What are your thoughts on that?
So I've, as I mentioned this to you previously, Gillian, my son was diagnosed with ADHD last year. And so I've been working with him, helping him. He's having a really tough time at school. So it's been an opportunity to kind of learn about it myself. And actually, I've seen a lot of those traits in myself as well. I am 100% an ideas person, full of ideas. I had Easter holidays off and I'd already come up with 2 new product ideas, and I built half of them because of AI and what I can do. And that is how I work, and that's how I operate as a person. But what I've learned, like you, Gillian, is I have the right people around me. When I had an investable business, I had a really good operational team. In my organization now, I've got really good operational support, project management support, the right skill sets around. And I think the interesting insight here is not just my way of dealing with ideas and who I am. It's what am I good at and where is my strength versus where is not my strengths and where is it that I need help. And I think there are some founders who may struggle on the ideas, but then think about employing someone with neurodiversity. Bring someone in who has that creative juice, but recognize what you're employing. You're employing someone who will have productive days, crazy days, but there's the opportunity for you to channel that as a founder who maybe can't do the ideas yourselves.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's something that we teach managers a lot. How do you get the best from people who are neurodivergent? And I think it's such an important skill, because I think they were like, how do I manage people who are neurodivergent? And it's not about managing them, it's about creating the right environment for them to give you back what they can give you. And if you can do that, then they can always give you what you need. I think that's really, really important. But as you said, the idea thing is funny. And of course, now with AI, I mean, AI is my best friend because AI can produce ideas faster than I can, but it can also do it alongside me. So it's like having a best friend who can think as fast. And you're like, give me another 7 ideas on how to do this. It's just wonderful. And, it never ever says to me, Gillian, will you calm down? It's just wonderful. I love it.
Mine told me over the weekend, you need to get into execution. I'm like, come on, I'm enjoying this.
It's good. I'm getting I've got 2 strands from this, which I found very powerful. One thing you both said was you surround yourself with people who support you in the areas that you don't feel kind of strong enough, or that you'd like to develop. And actually, I do the same. So for me, I am going to be less creative, I think, than you guys, as we discussed. But what I try and do is tap into really close people and kind of say, what's your view on this? Do you have any thoughts? And I think it's about building that trusted circle, isn't it? And being open to their suggestions and thoughts. And the second thing, which I thought was quite powerful, was your example, Gillian, where, you know, you were, again, being brave, and that the power of open communication, right? Guys, team, I've got these things impacting me, and they impact my behavior at times, which you'll have a different perspective of. But now I'm telling you, that's given them the freedom to actually say, okay, wow, you know, we can deal with that in a better way. And I think those are both really important ideas and concepts to explore for all of us, aren't they?
Thank you for pulling those out. So I agree with you, and I think that one of the things I like to encourage managers to do is to use a framework for getting to know their staff the minute they come and work with them. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we all came with a me profile, my manager and me, and that means that if they want to declare that they're neurodivergent, they can, or if they simply want to say, this is how I work at my best, you know, this is when I do things, these are the things which get in the way of me working and that I might like support with, and this is what you can get from me if you do that. And if the leader came with the same things, I think is really important. But the other thing that struck me, Romesh, when you were talking about what we've just said there about surrounding ourselves with people who really can help, is the other issue that entrepreneurs have of thinking they are the only person who can do anything and doing it all and doing too much. And if there was one thing which hindered me, I think, in the business for so many years, was my inability to delegate too much and to let go. And since I have done that, I'm a great believer in strengths development. And if you think about it, and you think about your monetary worth of an hour, and, you know, what could I earn getting on the phone to clients, designing, coming up with ideas, whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing in an hour, as opposed to me doing an hour of my diary management, which I will get wrong anyway. So I've completely delegated that to somebody else, because I would just double book myself and turn up at the wrong time everywhere, because it's a process thing and I'm not very good to process this. But, you know, if you think of yourself, if I did have a boss, and how much would they be paying me per hour? Would they be proud that I was using that hour to fiddle around with meetings in my diary? So it's about, you know, how do you really align the strengths in your business to achieve what you need to achieve?
Well, one of the areas that we've talked about on a number of occasions is finding, John Dyack calls it tens and twos. And he says things that people are two at and things people are tens at. But actually, some people are 15s at things. And when you know where their 15s are, let them go.
Yeah.
And his belief is that entrepreneurs have 15s. And often when they start the business, that shines through. And that's where the business succeeds. But as it matures, that can get very diluted.
Yeah.
And they can therefore, and I think that metaphor is what you're reflecting on there, actually. And I think it's recognizing where you're really strong. And as the business grows, and I don't know how big your business is now, but as it grows, what I've found for me is that I've got to let go of a lot of things and let go of the things that I am not as strong at.
Yeah.
Let other people lead those. They'll be better at it than me. But the stuff I'm good at, make sure that's the hour, to your point. That's where the value sits. And make sure you focus on the areas where you really add value.
That's so true. I mean, my son, as I said, he is creative, very creative as well. And because of this, he runs a very successful videography and photography business in the music industry. And big clients want him to do that. The bit that he struggles with was the invoicing, the booking things, the flights and everything else like that. So until he got a virtual assistant, you couldn't class his business as being successful, because he might be running around being so busy, but he's got no money coming in because he hasn't, you know, done the admin and other things like that. So that's exactly it, isn't it? Being a 10 and a 2. I like that analogy.
Yeah, and that's helped enormously, him getting that support.
It's helped enormously, and it's also helped him with his anxiety, because he used to judge his performance based on everything, and because he was behind with admin and failing at those things, it would make him feel he was not doing a good job. Whereas when he could focus on the creative side of the business, he's always doing a good job. So it's interesting how we rate ourselves and beat ourselves up for things, which actually we should say, do you know what, I've got somebody else who's great at PowerPoint, I just don't do it, they can do it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. So Gillian, I know quite a bit about your business history from having known you for some time. And I know that COVID was a particularly tough time for your business, as it was for many businesses, right? And you were able to use that time, that challenging, tough time, to actually kind of pivot and reinvent and think outside the box. And I think that's a particularly important, kind of example for us all right now. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. And I'd love to know, well, I'd love you to tell everyone about that story, and then perhaps the lessons you've learned from it and how you can be effective at doing what you've done.
Yes, I mean, for everyone, you know, who would have thought that? I was always worried I might lose the business due to Brexit. Never ever did it occur to me it might be, you know, through a pandemic. And, you know, in 2020, we were looking at probably the biggest order book we'd ever had in the business. It all looked very good that year. And so March the 23rd, because it's stuck in my memory, we just watched all of our orders disappear. We are a face-to-face training company, and we just watched all the orders disappear. Clients were just like, well, we don't know how long this will last, so we're not going to rebook until it happened. Would they come back? We didn't know. And it was really hard for one reason. I guess I could have closed the business like some people were, and I could have carried on just earning as a consultant. I would have been fine personally. But I had this team of people who've been with me for a long time. We have premises, we have a big client base, and I couldn't just let it go. And because I've always been quite careful with money, we had reserves in the business, although that was my pension fund, you know. And I thought, right, I've got about 6 months, and I had to tell the team, I can keep the business going for 6 months, but if we haven't broken even by then we are going to have to rethink, you know, but let's do everything we can. And so whilst everybody else is going, well, this is lovely, the weather's great, we can sunbathe and watch Netflix, we literally worked from 9 till 6 every day. And, you know, from bringing in contracts of 50, 100 grand or whatever, we were like, yay, I got a 2000 video to make today or something like that. And so we were doing a lot of free stuff for our clients. We were just keeping in touch. I didn't furlough our salespeople. We just kept in touch with people, asked how they were, what could we do to help them, so that when actually things came back to work, they were very loyal to us, which was great. And by September, we had our first break-even month. It was quite emotional. But the thing was that we decided we had to learn to pivot, and you can't just take ordinary training days and deliver the same thing online. We had to completely re-engineer the way that we trained. But before we did that, we had to persuade our clients that we could do it, because they were saying, oh, no, hang on, it'll be fine. And nobody had really done it before. So it was like, even coaching sessions, no, it won't be the same online, won't be the same online. And it's incredible now to think that I would travel for 2 hours to do a coaching session for 2 hours and then travel 2 hours back. Whereas now I could do, you know, 2.5 coaching sessions in that time. So we re-engineered everything. We learned every platform that there was. There were some scary moments in the beginning when we were playing around with Zoom and got completely locked out of meetings and left people in breakouts and did all sorts of stuff. And but what it did was opened up a massive global market for us, which we couldn't have done before. So it was one of those things. And you say, what lessons did you learn? I've been thinking about that a lot. what will our clients want in 10 years? Mike, you and I were talking about this earlier, about talking about future, about thinking, what will our clients want and how do we prepare for it now? Because our clients didn't know that's what they wanted. Now that they do, now they realise how much money they could save on travel costs and getting people on courses and doing things like that, and bringing in international colleagues. They want it online. Some of them still face-to-face, so we do both. But what if we could keep predicting that and think in 2036, what will our clients want? How will they want it differently? And preparing for that now, that we would never, ever be in that position of suddenly, oh my God, what do we do? And how do we do it? But it was a big lesson in resilience. And if anybody's interested, I should have it a bit closer. One of the ways I got through it is I wrote this tome here. And this was to raise money for the bereaved families of the NHS. Okay. And what I did was every day I documented everything that happened in the pandemic. Every single day I wrote for an hour. So it goes to show you, if you want to write a novel, if you write every hour for one day, by the end of it I had 180,000 words after 3 months, and then I had to stop writing and start editing it down because it was obviously fast, because I thought the pandemic would over, and my last chapter would be, we all went out in the street and had a hey the pandemic's gone party.
For the benefit of our podcast listeners, can I get you to talk about the title of that book?
Yes, it's called Locked Down But Not Out. And it was a diary.
Very good title.
Everything that happened in COVID, plus my fight to save the business. So it's quite vulnerable, you know. You'll see me saying, and we had a Zoom meeting about what we were going to sell this week, and we did that. It was a great chat. And then I went out in the garden, I cried for an hour because it was all so strange and uncertain, wasn't it? It's just. But if you read this book now, you would think it was a fairy story. You would not believe, did we really do that? And of course, it exposes all the lies that the government told. So. Because I looked back, and on those nights that Boris was accused of having his parties, I was like, oh yeah, he didn't do the briefing that night, did he? He was obviously upstairs having cheese and wine.
Goodness me. So that book helped you. I suppose it was a coping mechanism in some ways as well.
Yeah,
right?
Writing is always a coping mechanism.
Yeah. I know that journaling is always encouraged, essentially, but this was a deeper form of journaling, wasn't it? So overcoming adversity is a key thread to your story. It's definitely something I see time and time again, and you keep doing it. So that's a huge credit to you. So that's a huge credit to your resilience and strength. Do you have any other insights or thoughts for us founders, entrepreneurs, business leaders of growing businesses who are navigating this kind of tough period? How can we cope better? How can we equip ourselves better to handle these challenges?
I think so much of it, you have to focus on what you can control, because when we start worrying so much about what we can't control, that's when it becomes insane and you become paralyzed. And you have to believe as well that, this too will pass, as they say. And so long as I'm taking action and doing something differently and thinking differently, you will get through this. And it happens all the time. That client that cancels the contract, the recession, the oil prices, everything else that's going on, fine. Can I do anything about it? It's happened. It's happening. No. What can I do? I can go and, make a few other calls. I can go and design a new project and get that out to market. And I think you really have to believe in yourself. You have to really back yourself, because otherwise, as I said, we do get into this place where we're like, I just can't do this and I can't go forward. And just keep thinking about, well, what else have we overcome over the years? At that moment, we thought our whole business was falling apart and we thought we'd never ever get through this. I go back to contracts you don't win. It's a big thing for us in our business, isn't it? All of us, we put a lot of work into bidding for work or trying to get work and things like that. And then they go with someone else. And maybe there's not even any feedback, or your prices are a bit too high. And it's like kind of mentally you'd put so much in store in the hope that that was going to happen. And it's devastating, I think, for people in business. So yeah, have a little wallow, not too long, and then just go, right, okay, what's next? Because the business is always out there if you can be creative enough to go for it.
Absolutely. And of course, you've overcome these challenges, and you've hit some pretty great heights, and some real highs on your journey. How did you feel about winning the Best Businesswoman of the Decade? I mean, what an achievement.
That was so unreal, Romesh, that night. It really was, because I decided to, it was a good opportunity to take my whole team up for a party. So we all had a table up there. And I've just never really applied for awards. I've had a couple of other awards, but never really done anything like that before. And it's such an honour to just be in the final 5.
Was that the first award you applied for, and you won Businesswoman?
Yeah, I was nominated. No, the year before I won Business Leader, Women Business Leader of the Year. I hadn't applied for that one, and that one was a voting award, and I wasn't too keen on that because it felt like a popularity contest. Whereas this one, it was judged, as we all know, and that felt much more real. And I knew quite a few people in my category, and I thought, I know who this is going to, and she absolutely deserved it. So I was so shocked, the adrenaline when that was my name, and it was just wonderful seeing the team. They were so excited. It was just it was an incredible feeling, and doubt whether I'll ever have that again, but I really loved it. Made me feel quite old, but I guess I could actually go for Businesswoman of the quarter century really at my age now. Never bring that one out.
Fantastic. It's a really interesting thing you say about the awards being kind of judged. I'm actually a judge at those awards, and that's how we met, isn't it? And it's really important, I think, to support businesses which those awards do so well, and to encourage female entrepreneurship, but actually to have credible, robust processes of assessment, and again, knowing what those assessment processes are like. That's more kudos to you from
maybe your question earlier, when did I start realizing that I was really a businesswoman? Maybe it was there. Maybe it took me.
You needed a lot further now than 5 years in.
You needed the recognition on your mantle.
I'm okay now. I think I've got this cracked.
Can I touch on it links to Romesh's questions, but it's more where you're going further forward in the future. But also, you're obviously full of ideas, and you love the ideation process. And you particularly really well have articulated how you've used it in adversity. When things are tough, and you've been able to craft something really quickly. How do you see yourself evolving the business now going forward? And have you got lots of ideas and big plans, or do you more naturally work to reacting to the context with which you operate within?
I will be very honest now, and I'd love to say we've just got the big plans and we keep following them through and we're doing that. But I think, like any business owner, we have the big plans, and then business as usual obviously comes and gets in the way. And you think, didn't we plan to do all this and do that? So we get back onto it. We do have some great products. One of our best products is Rise for Women, and it's a women's development program that we have run internationally around the world. And this year and last year we brought out Rise for Men as well, which was fantastic. We realised that men also need their own space. Women have always needed it, and Rise for Men helps men to talk about kind of their own thoughts and ideologies about what does it mean to be a man nowadays, and their own contributions as well. So we've got lots of products. However, and this is an interesting dilemma for other people out there, I'm now 66. And so I also have to think about what's the future of my business. And I think that for anybody who is an owner of a business, you will go through a lot of soul searching about what will I do with the business? Will I build it up and sell it? Will I bring someone else in to manage it? Will I just quietly retire and leave the business? Personally, I don't want to give up yet. I've still got so much energy left. However, I do recognise it's important to bring other people with me so that I can start focusing on reducing days in the future and still allowing the business to grow. So that's been what's been happening over the last couple of years. And that means that the business no longer is all about me. I've got other people who are building other big clients and working with other big clients so that we can see. I still have clients that I work with very personally, which I always will, and some new ones, but it's making it more of a big business rather than owner-led business. So there's a lot about that. There's a lot about products. As we said earlier, Mike, we've been doing a lot of future back thinking about what will the future look like and how can we assure ourselves against anything that's going to happen. And let's face it, when we hit a recession, whether we're going to or not, training is always one of the first things to get dropped from the list when people tighten their belts. So we really have to keep thinking about how do we look at what will companies do if they don't have the budgets that they used to train their people? How are we going to support them? How can we be cleverer about supporting them? And that could mean more products that they can use in-house. So I think we will be trademarking more things. And lots of stuff around that, really.
And do you see yourself consciously stepping back? Because the way you articulated that is you're looking for a plan to gradually exit in the right way, build up a team around you, but the way you talk is you're still full of ideas, still got things you want to do. Have you found your sweet spot yet of where you think you'll orientate your role in the future?
Yeah, and I think it will be more ideas generating. I still love being out training and coaching people. And so as long as I'm
feel that.
And I'm not too eccentric and they still let me in the training room, give me another 4 years and they might get that old person out of the room. I will still want to do that. But I've gone down to 4 days in the last year, which has been wonderful, actually. It's not really 4 days, it's sort of 4 days. And I think that's kind of quite important to think about. I've got other people now who are doing other bits, running the business and making sure that's going and all the other stuff, which is allowing me to focus on what I really enjoy doing until I, get to a point where, at some point we've all got to retire, haven't we? Although I don't think I ever will. I don't think it will ever be a complete retirement. The last year, I've just been doing my non-exec director qualifications because I quite fancy doing some of that in the future. The reason for that is because I'm quite jealous of people who have got a new role and they turn up with a new pencil case and it's all new and exciting. And for 30 years, I've never had that. I've never had a new job. I've just had this job, which has changed constantly. So I quite like the idea of that. I think that'll be really exciting to go in and go, oh, this is all new.
Introducing more change and dynamism into your life.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I think your energy would be missed you would miss the energy in some of those roles. I think what's interesting is we talk to a lot of people who plan their exit, and there's a lot of people who recommend have a clear plan for your exit, a clear exit strategy. What I find fascinating talking to you is that it's the energy about what you can give to the business and the energy you bring into all your ideas that is so empowering from what you're talking about. And I think that's exciting. And that's the sort of role that can go on forever. It's a business that gives you what you love and enjoy, right?
Yeah. Well, also, and this is something that not a lot of people know, so I'm putting it out there because it will come to know. My daughter joined the business 3 or 4 years ago and will at some point in the future take over the business, which was amazing because, she was doing the same thing, doing DEI for another company years ago, and kind of we were resisting a bit. We didn't want to make it look like, well, you can just come and work here. but she chose to and does a wonderful job. So it's really nice to think that what we've created will continue, hopefully for another 30 years.
I think one of the things I love about talking to you, Gillian, is the fact that Romesh and I say we'd love to inspire more and more people to become entrepreneurs and go for it and set up their own business, because it's an opportunity to earn money yourself, do what you love doing. And I think you've personified that in how you've articulated your business for the last 30 years. It's become it's become what you love doing, and it's allowed you to express yourself in the way you want to. And I think for me, that's really inspiring. And it's really important for listeners of this to recognize that if you want to set up your own business, you can set something up that really means something to you, really purposeful and focused around who you are and what you want to become.
That's so true. And my dear old dad, bless him, one of the things he used to say to me, if you're not enjoying it, don't do it anymore. It was as simple as that. And I think that I talk to so many people who are in their jobs or in their businesses and they don't necessarily enjoy it. And I think if you can't get up in the morning loving what you do and being excited for it, then think about why that is. And if you can't find a way to change it, then just stop doing it, because it always shines through, doesn't it? You just got to really love it. And as we said earlier, there'll be parts of it that you don't love. There's certainly been parts of running a business that I haven't loved over the years. Maybe you do find somebody else to do, or you just have to accept that it comes with the territory sometimes. And you do have to read the accounts.
Romesh loves reading the accounts.
How very dare you?
Or you get a really good person like Romesh to read them for you. Maybe that's even better.
Absolutely. No, I think you're so right. You've got to love what you do. You're going to be better at it. You're going to get a better outcome if you back up what you're doing with passion and conviction and motivation, right? It just makes so much sense to me. But I wanted to talk about one more thing before we round off, because I know it's an area, Gillian, that you're really passionate about. It's something you talked about at the beginning, and that's diversity, equality, inclusion. And I think DEI has fallen down the list of priorities for many businesses at the moment. I wanted to ask you, why you feel that is, and perhaps, why it's so important that is reversed over time.
There's lots of reasons. I'm going to stick with the UK because otherwise we'll become overly political and we will get involved with that. I think pressure from certain areas on UK companies has done that. I think that when DEI really found its feet and started to be put on the agenda more was with Black Lives Matter, hashtag Black Lives Matter. And I think there was a lot of well-intentioned work that went on, which didn't actually make a change in organisation. There were lots of people who were talking about it, Black History Month, doing all this, which is all great stuff. But that a lot of companies didn't have a real strategy for their EDI. And you need a strategy. You really need to understand what it's going to do to the bottom line. And there is a lot of stats which show us that organisations with diversity, and we also have to remember that a lot of people are focused on just certain parts of EDI for a long time, or DEI, and that might be, as we said, with the Black Lives Matter, women's, which we focused on as well. But there's so many other parts. There's the disability, there is the neurodivergent, there's menopause, there's such a range of different things when we look at diversity. And we look at intersectionality as well, because no person is just one of those things. But if we truly want to be successful as an organisation, number one, we need diversity, because we're not reflecting our customers' demographics if we don't have it. So, let's talk about business reasons, first of all. Forget about being the right thing to do and the useful thing to do. The second thing is, if you're bidding for contracts, customers want to not just see your DEI policy, but want to see it in action in your business and how you're doing it there. Obviously, government legislation is changing changing all the while. I see a lot about that. So, and there's also evidence that, for example, neurodivergence, there are certain companies, big companies, who are now advertising for autistic people because they recognise that they are the best code breakers and they do certain jobs really, really well. So it goes back to what we were saying earlier about let's get the right people for the right jobs. So there's lots of reasons why it's worth doing. And Mike, for you saying, you know, as some with ADHD, what makes me really happy is I think that clients in the future will be so much better informed about these things, that the world for people who are neurodivergent in the future is much better than the world before, who just looked at neurotypical people and thought, well, you behave oddly or you're different and we don't know how to manage you. I'm going round about, Romesh, and thinking, what was the original? This is ADHD in action. What was the original question? It was, why is it important?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. And really what I'm getting from your answer is, and something that I truly believe in is, look, at the end of the day, if you own a business, you want it to be successful by definition, right? You do. And why would you not consider certain pools of talent? You know, you're limiting the breadth of talent, skill, expertise, motivation, drive. You know, so why would you do that? And yeah, you know, I think it's the way forwards. Mike, do you have any thoughts?
I think we've touched on it as part of the earlier part of this call at the moment. People call it DE&I, and it's probably got a label that's politically a bit more taboo. But what I think, Gillian, what you said there and what we've talked about on this call is the recognition that a diverse organisation with different skill sets and different capabilities is more likely to succeed for the purpose of adapting to a changing market, different customer, different language, different culture, whatever, different technology needs, whatever it is. The more diverse your organisation employment pool is, the more successful you are likely to become. And I think that's got lost a little bit at the moment.
Yeah,
and I think if people can recognise that still, they'll see the value in it across everything, right? Enjoyment of work through to outcomes and benefits.
The richness of it. And I think you're right. So we call it inclusive cultures. And it's basically creating a culture of inclusivity and enough psychological safety that anybody, doesn't matter who they are, where they're from, what their lived experience is, can absolutely fully contribute in a way that feels most comfortable to them. And that's got to be a good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that was a good topic to kind of touch on at the end and explore. Mike, I've got so many takeaways from this brilliant conversation with Gillian. Mike, what are your thoughts? You know, what are you taking away from this?
So much. It's been so interesting to talk to you, Gillian, and I've learned a lot myself about and things to think about. But the one you said to me, it's not about management of neurodiversity, it's about creating the right environment. And you changed my language there, and I think that subtle change of language is really important. Create the right environment for what you're trying to achieve and the team that you're trying to build or the environment you're trying to work in. And I think that's such a good takeaway for anybody, because some people prefer some environments, some prefer different. An environment is a broad term, it's not a physical space, but I think that's such a useful takeaway to enable a business to thrive with a diverse team who are capable of adapting to what is going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
Well, what a powerful takeaway, Mike. Thank you. And yeah, Gillian, I would like to thank you so much. I've got a whole list of takeaways. I think some of the ones that spring immediately to mind are your open communication and bravery, which has enabled success, the reinvention, the pivoting, the thinking deeply about the future. I think it's really important that business owners take a step back as often as they can to consider paths forwards and whether they're actually working on the right thing. And that was a really powerful learning. And you know, one thing that we all talked about was surrounding ourselves with good people that we trust and know and have a different perspective, and being open enough to listen to challenge as well. I think that's so good. So once again, I'd really like to thank you for a really wonderful, powerful, rich discussion, and well done to you for everything you've achieved today, and looking forward to your next steps and how you continue to evolve.
Thank you so much.
It's been lovely to meet you, Gillian.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. So, as always, we'd like to thank our audience at Strive and Thrive for tuning in, and we really hope you got as much out of today's discussion as Mike and I have. It's been great. As you know, Strive and Thrive is a podcast for entrepreneurs, business leaders, founders of SME businesses. Please do like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Hopefully, we'll catch you next time. Thank you for listening to Strive and Thrive.